Here's something that's going to make you uncomfortable. If you earn around $50,000 a year, you're probably doing fine. Not great. Not terrible. Just fine. Your bills get paid. You're not drowning. You're not desperate. And that's exactly why this salary is so dangerous. Because $50,000 feels like progress. It feels like you made it out of struggle. It feels like adulthood. It feels like stability, but for millions of people, it quietly becomes a financial ceiling they never escape. Not because they're lazy, not because they're irresponsible, but because nobody warned them about the trap. Let me explain. There are two versions of you living parallel lives right now. One version is still earning around $50,000 to $60,000 10 years from now. Still budgeting, still stressed when something breaks, still saying things like, once I make a little more, everything will be easier. The other version used this income as a launch pad. They don't live extravagantly. They don't flash money, but they have margin. They have options. They are not terrified of the future. The difference between those two versions isn't intelligence. It isn't hustle. And it definitely isn't luck. It's whether you fall into the $50,000 salary trap or see it for what it really is. Because $50,000 is the most dangerous amount of money most people will ever make. It's enough to survive, but not enough to coast. And that middle ground is where progress goes to die. Here's why. When you earn very little, every decision matters. You feel pressure. You feel urgency. You know something has to change. But when you cross into the $50,000 range, something shifts psychologically. You can afford rent. You can afford a car. You can afford eating out occasionally. You can afford subscriptions. You can afford small comforts. And your brain interprets this as success, not abundance, just relief. Relief is powerful. Relief tells you to relax. Relief tells you to stop pushing. Relief tells you, this is fine. But fine is not a strategy. It's a stall. At this income level, lifestyle creep doesn't arrive loudly. It sneaks in quietly. A slightly better apartment, a slightly nicer car, a few more meals out, upgraded phone, more convenience. Nothing reckless. Nothing dramatic. But every upgrade raises your baseline, and within a year or two, you're no longer living like someone who earns $50,000. You're living like someone who needs $50,000. That's the trap. Because now your income isn't funding progress, it's funding maintenance. Your paycheck shows up and disappears. Not because you're irresponsible, but because your life expanded to match it. And once that happens, growth slows to a crawl. Here's the brutal math nobody walks you through. At $50,000 a year, after taxes, you're likely taking home somewhere between $38,000 and $42,000. That's roughly $3,200 a month. Now subtract rent or mortgage, utilities, transportation, insurance, food, minimum debt payments. What's left isn't zero, but it's thin. And thin margins are dangerous, because thin margins mean one medical bill hurts, one job disruption scares you, one mistake sets you back months. And when your margin is thin, you don't think long-term. You think survival adjacent. You don't ask, how do I build wealth? You ask, how do I get through this month comfortably? That mindset becomes permanent if you're not careful. This is why so many people get stuck here for decades. They are not failing. They are not thriving. They're managing. And management feels productive, but it's not the same as growth. Now here's the part that really messes with people's heads. The $50,000 trap doesn't feel like a trap while you're in it. It feels responsible. It feels mature. It feels like you're doing what you're supposed to do. You show up. You work. You pay your bills. You don't do anything wrong. But years go by, and then one day, you look up and realize something terrifying. Your income hasn't meaningfully changed. Your savings aren't where you thought they'd be, and the future feels heavy, not because you failed, but because time passed quietly. This is the moment most people panic, and panic creates bad decisions. They chase side hustles they hate. They jump into risky investments they don't understand. They try to shortcut a decade of stagnation. But the people who escape the $50,000 trap don't do that. They do something much less dramatic and much more uncomfortable. They treat $50,000 as temporary by design. They don't optimize comfort. They optimize leverage. Because here's the truth. At $50,000, the most valuable thing you can invest in is not stocks. It's not crypto. It's not real estate. It's your earning power. This is the income range where skill compounding matters more than market compounding. Every dollar you invest in increasing your value has a higher return than almost any financial asset. But most people don't do that, because it doesn't feel urgent. They think, I'll focus on growth later, once I'm more stable, once things calm down. They never do. Instead, they perfect budgeting. They squeeze expenses. They optimize spreadsheets. All useful skills, but none of them raise the ceiling. You cannot budget your way out of the $50,000 trap. You have to outgrow it, and that requires a mindset shift most people avoid. You have to accept that comfort is the enemy at this stage. Not recklessness, not enjoyment, but passive comfort, because comfort tells you to stop pushing, and pushing is what creates escape velocity. The people who break free do a few key things differently. First, they cap their lifestyle early. They don't upgrade just because they can. They upgrade intentionally. They live like they still earn less than they do, not out of deprivation, but out of strategy. This creates margin, and margin creates power. Second, they invest aggressively in skills that scale, not random learning, not endless courses, but skills that directly increase income. Skills tied to leverage, skills that compound, skills that the market actually pays for. They don't ask, "What am I interested in?" They ask, "What problem can I solve better than most people?" That distinction changes everything. Third, they avoid debt that locks them into this income level. Car payments, lifestyle debt, financing comfort. Every fixed payment is a leash, and the more leashes you have, the harder it is to move. Debt at this stage doesn't just cost money, it costs flexibility, and flexibility is the currency of growth. Fourth, they start investing early, but modestly, not because it will make them rich immediately, but because it builds identity. They become someone who invests, someone who thinks in decades, someone who understands compounding. Even small amounts matter psychologically, because identity compounds before money does. Finally, they understand something most people don't. $50,000 is not a destination. It's a test of discipline, a test of patience, a test of whether you'll trade short-term comfort for long-term freedom. Most people fail this test quietly. They don't blow up their lives. They don't crash. They just stall. And one day, they wake up in their 40s or 50s earning a bit more than $50,000, but living like they're still catching up, still nervous, still stretched, still hoping the future will be kinder. The people who pass the test don't look extraordinary while they're doing it. They just look boring, focused, slightly uncomfortable. But years later, the difference is massive. They have options, they have margin, they have breathing room, and it all traces back to how they treated this income level. So if you earn around $50,000 a year, understand this. You're not behind, but you are at a crossroads. This salary can either anesthetize your ambition or finance your escape. The money itself isn't the problem. Staying here without a plan is. Your future self is watching, not judging, just waiting to see what you do next. And the choices you make at this income level will echo for decades. Choose wisely.